Going live. And we are on air. All right. Hey, everyone. Joe here for the second Patreon Hangout. I paused there. Woohoo! So we're here. We got a couple of folks here, and I guess let's our intention this time around is to talk about remakes, remasters, sequels, spiritual successors, all that noise, so we can get trolls really mad. But before we do that, let's go. Let's
you
go.
Do realize I'm the Space Quest historian, and there are 6 games in that series, not counting fan-made sequels and such. How am I going to get bitchy about sequels? That thing was a sequel marathon.
Well, maybe you won't get bitchy about sequels, but I know you're very passionate about remakes.
Oh, right. It's a good thing we don't have DOS Nostalgic in here. I'm going to shut up now. I'm sorry.
So it begins.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, I snorted. Wow.
As far as sequels are concerned, someone's got to get bitchy. It might as well be me.
There you go. All right, so let's go around the room and let's. I'm Joe. You guys know me, obviously. And let's start with Amayirot. Let's go for it.
Well, I'm Amayirot Akago. You know, the all-around friendly Dutch guy who likes to do video reviews and play video games and watch Steven Universe, as you could probably tell from my avatar, which I hastily traced from a Steven Universe screenshot in EGA style to resemble me.
What a fancy green eyes.
You're going to have to be forced to watch this thing the whole way through because I don't have a camera this time around, unfortunately.
But the little thing that pulsates when you talk is very mesmerizing.
Ding.
All right, so next let's go with Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian. I go by HD Brian on social networks. And I was on the last chat. A lot of people were asking me like, "Why were you so quiet?" And I've realized it's because I'm not nearly as hardcore as some of you guys. I'm more of a fan. I hate to use the word casual, but I thought like none of my friends knew anything about classic PC games, and then I talked to you guys, and I'm more here to learn from you guys. I'd have to say.
I think you're also much more polite than the rest of us.
Oh, well, that too. Raise my hand when I want to talk and wait.
Like, my turn. Nope, you just got to be a jerk about it.
It's good that you're here to learn. There will be a test at the end of the Hangout.
Well, that's why I listen to the podcast. I learn a lot. I learn about games I've never even heard of and games I've heard of but didn't think were good. And then when Joe, gives a good recommendation and I play it and realize, like, why didn't I play this 20 years ago?
Me too.
That's one of the reasons why I dearly love Joe's show. I think I refer to him as like a talking Wikipedia page, in an affectionate way, of course. And he truly is. I'm
so exciting that I've been compared to the encyclopedia.
In the best way possible, I'm sure.
Next, we have a newcomer to the Hangouts, Martin.
Hey, I'm Martin Solis, and I'm an avid gamer, but like Brian before me, I'm not that much of a. I don't have a lot of experience playing any older games before 1995, so I like to listen to the show, and I mostly listen to the dev story. Like I love the politics behind the making of video games, so I may not have as much to talk about, but I'm really glad I'm here.
Cool. Yeah, it's amazing all the shit that goes down behind the scenes.
Welcome. I just want to point out that your mustache actually resembles Amayirot's icon, which I think is suspicious as hell. But yeah, go ahead.
Especially since Amayirot doesn't have video.
Excuse me.
I see what's going on here. All right, Tomer, go ahead. Let's go ahead with you.
Okay, so you're not going in the order of the Google thing.
I'm going in the order of my Google thing.
Yeah, each one of us gets a different order.
Awesome. So actually, it's a good thing that I come before Troels because I'm going to touch on that in a bit.
You're going to touch on Troels?
You're going to touch me?
Fuck.
You are wearing a very fancy robe.
Yeah, I'm going to touch Troels more and more as we go through the episode because what happens is that my own version of Troels' swear jar is that whenever Troels uses the F word, I have to drink a little bit of, this is actually soju, not sake, but close enough. So I'm probably going to be pretty drunk. But yeah, there's this.
Like a swig of beer.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Good.
Right. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. I'm also a pretty avid gamer. I'm actually a lot more kind of historically inclined. So I'm sort of the inverse of Martin. I've played mostly games that probably the latest one of which is from '95. And yeah, I mean, had fun at the last Hangout. Hoping to bullshit again.
Oh, definitely.
And last but most certainly not least, please, Troels, introduce yourself. The man does not require introduction, but do it anyways.
I don't. It's amazing how I've managed to integrate myself onto your show. Hi everyone, I'm the Space Quest historian. I'm wearing a fancy robe. I do two little stupid podcasts. One with my friend Frederick, who I dearly hope I can somehow lure into one of these hangouts at some point, because we do make a good team. It's called The Backseat Designers, and then I do my own little show called The Space Quest Historian. Season 3 is coming up sometime this millennia. And also, in preparation for tonight's show, I brought my own swear jar. Now, those of you listening to the audio version of this is unable to see that I am holding up a tiny mushroom-shaped jar, which I, whenever Tomer has to drink, I also have to punish myself. So actually, I'm kind of disappointed that when I said cheers, Tomer didn't drink. So I'm just gonna go fuck, and then
there now Tomer has to drink.
Cheers.
I'll take a swig too. Hey.
Troels, are you wearing any pants?
Am I wearing any pants?
Yes.
No.
Good. Okay, moving
What a
on.
silly question.
For all anyone knows, none of us are wearing pants, so.
Exactly.
No, pants don't go in Andromeda land. Me and Scott Murphy, if we have one thing in common, it's our distaste for pants. And no one has just like this dead silence wafted over the
Stunned
hangout.
silence. We don't know what to say. It's like.
I'm gonna spare all you viewers out there in YouTube land from actually proving my pantslessness. I am, however, wearing socks.
Very nice.
Again, stunned silence. I'm. All right.
No,
I am one hungover cry canister.
It was amazement, not silence.
Exactly.
Not stunned, it's contemplative silence.
Everyone at once, please.
Oh, that's the downfall of these contraptions. So let's get rolling with the topic now that we know who's here and who's wearing what.
I'm not wearing socks. I'm wearing sandals.
And an idea just popped into my head, introduction-wise, before we get to the topic. Why don't we just quickly go around and say where we're all from? Because this is kind of like an international kind of style hangout of interesting people from various countries.
That is true.
Because I have no idea where Martin is from.
Well, I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Hello, Dallas, Texas. How are you?
Pretty good.
It's very nice to meet you for the first time.
Awesome.
I've heard all about you.
So have we all.
What have I done to do? Okay, never mind. So I know Amayirot is from Holland, and I know Tomer is from Israel, and I know Joe's a fine Canadian. I'm actually not sure where Brian's from.
I'm from the middle of the U.S. I'm in Kansas City.
Aha.
Ooh, nice.
And for those of you who don't know, Troels is from Denmark.
That is true. That is true. I am from Denmark. And Brian is from the hotbed of evolution. Nice. No idea. See, I'm getting on everyone's tits.
Controversial.
Quick question.
Yes.
Kansas, is that anywhere near Dakota?
Not really. I mean, it's south, so.
Oh, right.
But it's like literally if you were to take the map and just fold it and fold it again, we'd be right there in the center of Kansas City.
Yeah. I was wondering, since a friend of mine is leaving for South Dakota in a little while to study.
Cool.
He's leaving for South Dakota.
He's not leaving South Dakota.
Yeah, leaving. Did I say just leaving? I meant leaving for, yeah.
We got it.
And now we get the flip side of the coin of this being an international UN-style hangout. No one has any grasp of English except the Americans and Canadians.
Hey!
And the Israelis.
Oh, and the Israeli, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start talking about some remakes and remasters and all that stuff. And I think, to begin, because, like on the show, I like to know what we're talking about. I like to define things. Maybe we should define a couple of things, because I think the definitions of some of these things are pretty contentious.
I was worried about that too, because
Yeah.
if you want to be like as technical as possible, you could even say that Command & Conquer 95 is a remake because it uses the Red Alert engine.
Right.
I'd say that's a reissue.
Can I jump in with my opinion on just a real quick
Absolutely.
I feel
before the
I haven't wrote some notes here because I've learned I've got to jump in before Trolls get started. So
There you go.
here I want to hear people's opinions on my beliefs on this too. Is I believe that a remaster is usually the exact same content but shinier. You know, HD, more colors, whatever that may be. And I think a remake is the same content, you know, the same levels and stuff like that, but either a new engine or maybe a new play style.
Or reinterpretation.
Yeah,
Right.
and a good
Now-
example of that, if anybody played Real Mist, where it's the exact same Mist concept, but it's in FPS format. You know, that's my perfect example of what a remake is. Versus on the remaster, they had Mist the Masterpiece Edition.
Right.
And that is, to me, that's the difference between a remaster and a remake, is Real Mist remake, Masterpiece Edition is remaster. You know, HD versions or enhanced versions. And then reboots, I think of something like Doom 3, in my opinion, is a reboot of Doom 1. You know, it's the story told again, but it's entirely different content and all that. Like Wolfenstein, Return to Castle Wolfenstein 2001 is another example, or they just had a Shadow Warrior one come out. And then spiritual successors, just usually it's where they can't use the same copyright stuff, like Dragon Age Origins was kind of a...
Venture.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
And even I would consider like Doom a spiritual successor to Wolfenstein 3D if we want to go way back. That's the first spiritual successor I remember playing.
An important part of remasters as well is that usually they're reissues of games that don't run on contemporary hardware.
Yeah, and that's like my favorites of those are like the source ports. Like I love playing Descent source ports.
Oh, absolutely.
Where and here's my nutshell of a remaster is it's playing a game that looks like my mind remembers it looking when I think back. You know, in my nostalgic mind, I think something looked gorgeous, and I go back and play the original Descent, for example, and I'm like, this is so ugly.
And that actually happened. Like when I was covering Descent for the show, I played because I want to play the original version. I played the original version for like an hour maybe, and then I'm like, let me check out one of these source ports, and like the original version was like I was squinting, it was kind of giving me a headache a little bit, and then I up-resed everything, and I was like, wow, okay, now I remember this. Now this game is fun.
In your podcast about emulation way back in the beginning of your show, you touched on source ports, but do you want to cover that again for the people who didn't watch that?
Sure. Does someone else want to talk about it? You guys hear me talk all the time on this show.
Well, I can, since I was so quiet last time. A source port is where they take the original content and it's usually a new engine. Like, for example, using 3D, Direct 3D, or OpenGL. We were talking about the Descent one, but Doom, there's like a billion source ports for Doom. If you want to play Doom with 3D graphics, you want to be able to look up and down, stuff like that, just search for Doom source port and you'll have a whole bunch of options. But it's different from emulation. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Or actually, go ahead, Troels.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say my favorite is the Rise of the Triad source port, which some Danish guy sat down and did. It's unbelievable. It's stellar.
Yeah.
I haven't actually tried most of those source ports. The only thing I even got close to messing with Doom was Brutal Doom.
That one is excellent as well.
One of the bunnies.
Well, and the difference between a source port for Doom is that on Xbox 360 they put Doom out, and all they did is just put it in HD resolution, and it's the exact same engine, just with the resolution cranked up. And a source port is a new engine done with the 3D hardware.
I would argue that a source port is not necessarily a new engine. Actually, what typically happens is that some version of the game is released along with its source code. The canonical example that I can think of besides Doom would actually be Star Control 2.
Right.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves a little bit by talking about source ports? Is that part of the discussion?
Not so much.
No, I just want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that
chaos is going on.
So, do source ports count as remasters to you guys?
No, definitely not. Because to my mind, what happens is that what happens with source ports is typically whatever the community sort of wishes happens. So To go back to the example that I used, which is Star Control 2, what happened was that the source for Star Control 2 and the 3DO was released way back when, and then the community sort of took that and used that to generate an open source version that's completely faithful to the original game, but runs on modern hardware.
The Rise of the Urquan Masters.
Yeah, that's the one. And then a different segment of the community sort of built on that to produce what I would consider to be a remaster, which is the Urquan Masters HD edition, or whatever its name is. So you have the same source port sort of driving both just a newly accessible version of the game, and then upon that you had a complete remastered version constructed. So I would argue that it's neither of those two things. It's a separate concept.
There's one thing I want to get in edgewise. Get used to that. Which is that when we're talking about remasters and source ports and such, community released shit like a GZ Doom or the Rise of the Triad source port and such, those were built by a fan community, and I'm not saying we should completely forget about those or not talk about them at all, because fan sequels are also a fun thing to talk about. But it's in my mind it's more interesting when the company that actually made the shit goes back and re-releases it using a new engine, like Real Mist, for instance. Even though Mist is unarguably complete garbage, it's more interesting when the company or someone who acquired the license goes back and does a source port or does a remastered edition or something like that.
Kind of like Battlezone for PC.
Kind of like what? I'm sorry.
Battlezone. One of the original devs still updates the game Battlezone for PC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's adding all sorts of new features to it almost monthly, and it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, and the dude who did the Incredible Machine for Dynamics, he's done that Rube Goldberg game, which is it's just a sandbox for having it was everything that made the Incredible Machine fun, just tons more of it.
So is that a spiritual successor?
I would say that's a spiritual successor. Yeah.
Yeah, because didn't he have a Kickstarter a while back?
I think he did. I haven't actually played it, but I played a shitload of the Incredible Machine as a kid. And I'm using the word shit a lot, so Tomer doesn't have to get completely blitzed at the start.
There's that new game, Contraption Maker on Steam, right?
Right, that's the one, I think.
Oh, yeah. Right. Because there's another one called Root Machine or something like that. Can't remember.
So I gave all my definitions. Does anybody else have different definitions that contradict what I thought? Because that's just my opinion,
No, I was when you were bringing up remakes, not to bring up consoles or anything, but one of my favorite remakes is Super Castlevania for the Super Nintendo, which is just it's a remake of the first Castlevania, but done it's one of the only games I keep going back to over and over again on Super Nintendo.
Is it really? Is it like the exact same game?
It's it's Simon Belmont who goes through the Castle Dracula, and he defeats all the monsters almost in the exact same order with a few new twists put in there. Of course, you can, just because it's a Super Nintendo, they get mode 7, and you can move the whip in all 8 directions and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a remake.
Yeah, it's the same concept, but not the exact same game. Right. Just expanded on the original, basically.
Well, Super Mario All-Stars was the example where they 16-bitted the 8-bit Mario games.
Right. And that would be a remaster, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd call that a remaster.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what about which Tex Murphy was it that retold the first game? Was it Overseer?
Overseer. Yeah. That was not a remake. Well, I guess it was kind of all right. It was a remake because it framed the narrative differently, and it did I cut someone off? I'm sorry.
No.
I can tell. Okay, because everyone was just looking around, going, "What the fuck? What's he doing?"
Okay, so.
Anyway. Anyway, yeah, Overseer framed it as a flashback story because it wasn't just a retelling of Mean Streets, the first Tex Murphy game. It was actually Tex in-game retelling the story of Mean Streets to Chelsea, which I thought was such a very, very interesting way of doing it. And it is a testament to how great those kids are at building a narrative. Especially considering the ultra short development time they had for Overseer, which was like what 12 months or something.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
because they-
really fast. So
Yeah.
They were mandated to make the game by Intel, I think it was.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Thank you, Intel, for not giving us trans, you
So-
pissheads.
So Troels, you agree that that's a remake, not a remaster, right?
Completely.
Yeah, because I think
they
a
rebuilt the entire game from the ground up, so it counts as a remake.
like a
not
remaster
only-
of that, I think would have been more like, this is the exact same gameplay of Mean Streets. You'd be flying around places. It would just look better. Maybe they would.
exactly. I mean,
Well, like
I'm
Another
actually-
World is a better example of that, right?
Oh yeah.
Play the
Yeah.
Other World anniversary.
Right. Yes.
That's
And that is a remaster.
yeah.
But I do agree with Brian on most of his definitions. I think I would argue that even though you're using a completely new engine and it's built to run on modern systems and all the visuals have been jacked up and stuff, I really think that if it's really a shot-by-shot remake, that really counts as a remaster in my opinion. I mean, Super Mario All Stars, for instance. I'm not even sure it runs on the same NES engine. It obviously.
It does.
It does?
Yeah,
It does not.
It does. In fact, if you go into the ROM, you can actually find a lot of the unused sprites that they just didn't even bother to up-res.
So they just
I thought they made a new
ported
engine and
the
imported
NES
sprites.
original to.
They fixed a
But
few
anyway.
glitches, but no, it's the same engine.
I mean,
I would
real
argue-
mist would count. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go, Troels, it's you.
That's,
Oh,
the
it's
primary-
Tomer.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
I would argue that the primary difference between a remake and a remaster is that a remaster is intended to be a straightforward, completely faithful sort of asset upgrade, I guess you could say. Take the same gameplay, try to recreate it as faithfully as possible with renewed graphics, renewed music, whatnot. But the core of the gameplay is intended by design to be as faithful as possible to the original. Whereas with a remake, what typically happens is you take certain licenses, certain artistic licenses on top of just recreating the game from scratch. And oftentimes you might reinterpret it or shift perspective or do any number of things. So it can be fairly close to faithful, but it's not intended to be faithful by design.
I completely agree. And also, I love the fact that it sounds like you're in a fucking cathedral. Sorry. Anyway, I completely agree because let's look at the Gabriel Knight remastered.
Good. I was
20th
about to bring that
anniversary.
one up, so I'm glad you did.
All right. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but it's actually in the title Gabriel Knight Remastered, or isn't it?
It's 20th anniversary edition, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Well, sorry,
thought that was a
sorry.
remake.
I didn't catch that because that's in my opinion that's a remake because it's the Gabriel Knight we know just in a new engine and with 20% more bullshit.
Main character doing a pretty good impression of Tim Curry's bad accent.
And also logic puzzles and switch flipping and shit we didn't need. But anyway, that would count as a remake because they went in with the source material and messed around with it, not to the game's advantage. And the other one is, of course, Broken Sword.
I know this was coming.
The director's cut, which also is complete bullshit, which also went in and messed with a formula that did not need messing with. Those, in my opinion, would be remakes, even though the devs and publishers are touting it as remastered.
So I want to ask a question about Broken Sword Remastered because Troels, I know you played the Wii version and that obviously had.
Actually, aren't those called director's cuts, not remastered?
Yes, that was the director's cut. So that is inherently going to be different, right? So if you watch Blade Runner director's cut.
Now I'm just gonna flat out say this: calling a game director's cut is bullshit. I'm deeply sorry, Agustin Cortés, even though I love your fancy name and you're a good friend, but calling a game director's cut is complete bullshit. That means That means you took elements that you didn't that you cut out of the original game and put them back in. That's what a director's cut is.
Right.
Most game director's cut are remakes with added stuff into it. You didn't have that shit lying around and then put it back in.
I know one example where that did happen. Resident Evil.
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah.
Hey, I think me and Martin are on the same page with some PC and some console background.
No, this is good. I
Right.
want to get some different perspectives in here, so I'm glad.
Oh, yeah, that was the first director's cut game I ever played. I didn't even understand what the difference was, to be honest. I was so young, I didn't really know what.
Well, I played the first one, and then playing the director's cut, it blew my
All
mind.
right,
It's
you're
more
talking
difficult.
about the director's cut on the original PlayStation and not the remake they later made for the GameCube.
And that was one of my examples on my list
I
of the
love
difference
that one.
between director's cuts, remakes, reboots.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a remaster, the Resident Evil.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the director's cut of the original game.
Yeah, it was the same engine, same everything. They just had content that some of it was rearranged too to make it, in my opinion, more difficult. And the director said that he wanted to be that more difficult, but the studio was telling him, or the publisher was telling him, like, hey, the original needs to be a little bit easier. So then he was able to do a director's cut with things harder like he wanted.
Didn't they also add in a few scenes that they cut in with the FMVs? Like,
Yes, and that's what Troels is saying.
Yeah, everything
content that had to be removed.
Everything except the cigarette smoking made it back in the director's cut.
Well, the thing is, they actually intended to put in the original FMVs that were cut from the original version, but for one reason or another, they forgot to do that. Actually, they did put them into the PC version, actually, but not in the PlayStation 1 version, from what I recall. Also, the director's cut, they put in one of the worst video game songs of all time.
Really?
What's that?
The Mansion Basement, where it's just a god-awful cacophony of trumpets.
But it's not very close, though.
I think I feel blessed that I don't remember that.
It's gotten pretty infamous around the internet.
All right, so Resident Evil, I'll grant you that one. That's a director's
That's
cut.
the only one that I can think of. Anybody else think of another director's cut?
Because like Broken Sword, obviously, that whole beginning part with Nico, that wasn't there before.
No,
right? They
drew that for the game. Calling Broken Sword director's cut a director's cut is complete bullshit. It's a remake. It actually treads a fine line between a remake and a remaster because most of the game is just the same game, just built so it can run on a modern system, and then they added a little bullshit introduction with Nico, and then they shoved it out the door.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask. Like, if so, say by definition that would be a remake, but if the new portion is kind of this little area, kind of like off to one side that I guess you can't skip it, but it doesn't really affect the flow of the game. Like, I don't really know if it affects the way you process the events of the game by playing the beginning part, as opposed to
it kind of skirts the line, I feel, because most of the game, well, it's the exact same game as the original, but with prettier graphics, and they kind of touched up the interface, the sound. So I suppose it's a remaster, but.
Although they added those bullshit logic puzzles. I'm sorry, I completely forgot about those. Carry on, sir.
Okay. Well, there you have that. So, in that sense, it does also count as a remake then.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my other question is Grim Fandango.
Grim Fandango is definitely a remaster because they left the original game untouched. They just touched up the graphics. They added in a couple of extras like the commentary. But
didn't they also add in a new shading engine?
But
the
original story, puzzles, everything remains intact. So,
but what about the mouse control?
No, that's still a remaster. That's still a touch-up. They just added prettier graphics. They added a new interface, but they didn't mess with the core puzzle, story, and design.
Yeah, the content is the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering is if they added a new interface, which could conceivably change the way you play the game. But
they did that in Broken Sword as well because Troels brought that up before with the Wii version.
Right.
Yeah, there's some extra stuff in it, but it does try to find an, I'd say, lazy line between being a remaster and a remake because, as you say, the original game is completely untouched. Even the speech is this horrible, low-fidelity 8-bit garbage, except for the voices during the new intro. Mm-hmm. So it's a really lazy remake, I'd say. Sorry, Charles Cecil. You're a nice guy too. I don't mean to get on your tits all this. Where's my fucking Beneath the Steel Sky too?
So Troels, it sounds like you prefer remasters over remakes. Am I right?
No, actually, I prefer remakes because I like the idea of going back to a story and just trying to see it from a different angle, trying to put a new spin on it. I loved Overseer, for instance. I thought it was a brilliant retelling of Mean Streets. Problem is, most designers apparently don't have that kind of imagination, so they prefer to stick with remasters and then add on little touches of bullshit that kind of turn them into remakes. Gabriel Knight, I'm looking at you.
For me, for my nostalgic, when I want to, wax nostalgic, I love the remasters because, like I said, it feels like I remember the game. And like for Joe, when he's playing games for his research, I got no problem with him playing a remaster for his research. Like that's what you did for Grim Fandango, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but as for doing like a remake, you touch on that at the end, but you don't play that for your research.
I'd say because I want to make sure that I experience the game the way I either experienced it when I first played it or would have experienced it had I played it at the time, because obviously I'm not going to talk about, and they did this and the inventory is easier to manage and the graphics are amazing, and if they weren't amazing the first time, so I want to know how it was.
How about you, Martin? What was your opinion? Do you prefer remakes or remasters?
I want to say I prefer remasters, because whenever someone says, okay, we're going to put out this new game and it's a remake of an older game that you really liked, what happens is that my expectations of that game is never met because I already have a specific box that I've contained everything I want that game to be, and it never fills that box. So like for Homeworld, I'm really glad they remastered it, until I played it and I realized they just ported as much as they could into the Homeworld 2 engine, and it suffers because of that. So that's my viewpoint.
I had that feeling when I got what was it, Half-Life 2, and I thought we were going to get a really great remaster of Half-Life 1 and Half-Life Source. And that's kind of what you just said. It just ported the contents into the Source engine, and then Black Mesa. Has anyone played Black Mesa?
Oh yeah, I have. Black Mesa is fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
it's fan made.
Yes.
And that's great. Where fan made, there you go, drink. Where fan made remaster is better than the remaster that they gave us.
Yeah,
Can I bring up a contentious point?
Of course. Do you have
That's
any
why
other?
we're here.
I also have non-contentious points. I like cats, for instance, and cacti. I think cacti are cute. But my contentious point is about games. My contentious point being the remakes or remasters of early Sierra Online adventure games. Like you have King's Quest EGA, and you have Space Quest 1 VGA, which is much maligned in the Space Quest community, not least by Scott Murphy himself. Do those count as remakes or remasters?
They're remakes.
Those are remakes.
Those are remakes.
I would argue that it depends on which, because the Space Quest 1 VGA I would consider it to be a remake, because while it's fairly faithful to the original, it actually diverges a lot, and not just graphics design. Whereas a different example would be Leisure Suit Larry 6, which had a Super VGA remaster, which was actually really, really, really well done. It was just a touch-up of everything that had to do with the game.
Well,
exactly. And it came out at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really... I love... Leisure Suit Larry 6 is my favorite.
Yeah, same here. Leisure Suit Larry 6 is my favorite Larry.
Yeah. And the CD-ROM version. I remember getting the Leisure Suit Larry collection back when I was a kid, and they had 1 through 6 on the disc.
Except 4.
Okay, so you win, but still, they put the disc version of Larry 6 on the CD, even though they had plenty of room for the CD version. And I even wrote Al Lowe and said, "What the fuck, man?" Sorry. And he was like, I know. They completely sidelined me. I prefer the CD version as well, and the CD version is gorgeous. But yeah, I agree. The Space Quest 1 VGA, that's a remake. King's Quest 1 for the SCI is a remake. because they don't add much, but they completely built the games from the ground up, and they did put in little touches and stuff. All right, so I'm
What
glad
is
we're
your
on the same
favorite
page.
remake?
My favorite remake of early Sierra games?
Of any remake. Like you said you like remasters better, what's your favorite remake? I'm sorry, the other way around. What's your favorite
yeah, right.
remaster? I asked the exact opposite question that I wanted to ask.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
what's your favorite
okay,
remaster?
Because I'm actually kind of hard pressed to name a favorite remake. Because I would just go with the Tex Murphy Overseer because I really like that game. Favorite remaster. Shit. Can I get back to you on that?
Of course. I mean, you talked about. That's the great thing about Troels is we more know what your favorite is to hate than your favorite is to love.
Do
so
I come
want to know
off
what
as...
your favorite is to love. That's why I asked the question.
Oh, I dearly love many things. It's just easier to talk about shit I hate. Apparently,
Do you all mind if I pick up the slack on the other two types of like categories of games that are under discussion?
Go for it.
Sure.
I would argue that spiritual successor and reboot are essentially the same thing, except that with a reboot you have the rights to the original names and assets.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
Kind of like Wing Commander and Star Citizen.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
Probably,
even before that, you had Starlancer.
Yeah, Star Lancer.
Two examples I would give have these written down. So, one of the better example, or at least modern examples of a reboot that I can think of is Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Yes, which is a great game, by the way.
Technically,
one of the
that is a sequel.
That is not a sequel.
No.
Oh,
matter
actually, if you
is
play
not a
through it,
sequel.
there are points where they refer back to Wolfenstein 2009.
Well, they refer to Castle Wolfenstein as well, but I wouldn't count it as a sequel to that. So.
Well, there's actually characters that in that game, you know, but BJ meets those characters and refers to those events. That is a contentious one. The newest Wolfenstein, where people debate if it's a sequel or just a reboot.
I don't know. I think a sequel implies, and that ties to the definition part of the discussion. I think a sequel implies a consistent continuity, and where the continuity is broken, then it's either not a good sequel or, in some cases, might be a reboot.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy. Every Final Fantasy is
Every
just
Final
a reboot.
Fantasy is a reboot, right? Yeah, except for Final Fantasy X-2.
I would
Or
argue that
13-2 and
13
Yeah.
Lightning Returns.
I'm sorry?
So say again, Amayirot?
Well, you brought Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2, then you had Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, 13 Lightning Returns. Those are all in the same continuity, more or less.
I kind of burned out on
actually-
Final Fantasy at 10. I didn't play 10-2, and then I stopped when they went online. So
I didn't play any of them myself, but actually an interesting little thing that I was thinking of concerning reboots and sequels and whatnot. Tomb Raider actually started out with as a God, I'm struggling
That's
for
what it
words.
started off.
Well, it started
platformer
off with base.
Well, they had a bunch of
you had the
sequels.
original series,
right.
and then after Chronicles, they rebooted the entire series when they passed it on to a different developer, and they got Tomb Raider Legend, which began an entirely new continuity. But then you got Tomb Raider Anniversary, which was a remake of the original game, but set in the Legend continuity. So that kind of complicates things a little bit.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it, reimagining?
We can make up all the words we want. Trust me, being that my other podcast is about Star Wars Expanded Universe, I know how complicated
I've
trying
been
to keep
meaning to get into those episodes myself.
Yeah.
I would say that a reimagining is just a remake. It's those are really synonyms because
So
and
here's a question for you guys: what is Wolfenstein 3D? Because it was based on Castle Wolfenstein.
None of the above. It's just.
I'd say I'd
Spiritual
call it
successor.
a spiritual successor to the original Castle Wolfenstein.
Well, no, because it has the rights. And didn't we decide that spiritual successors didn't have the rights?
Did they really have the rights though?
It's not. No. I'm with Akago on this one because a spiritual successor doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a rights issue. You could just say, well, I quite liked the original, so I'm going to do something that's quite similar to it, and then I'm going to completely reimagine it from the bottom up. So I would say that's a spiritual successor.
I would question that statement because it's one that's often used a lot to describe certain games that. Okay, so two examples that I can give. One is BioShock was sort of touted as being a spiritual successor to System Shock, and I would call bullshit on that.
I think that's loose.
Yeah, but it
has shock in the title.
Yeah.
Same creators and same themes.
No, not same themes at all. Actually, I don't know. I don't know how. Like, I assume you've played the original System Shock or System Shock.
System Shock 2. I never played the original System Shock actually, just System Shock 2.
I've played both of them.
I've loved both of them. I would argue, and I've loved BioShock as well, by the way. But I would argue that the only thing BioShock has in common is that its setting is sort of a survival horror setting. So that's pretty much the only thing it has in common with the original System Shock.
The thing with both games is that they're kind of a hybrid of first-person shooting and role-playing because aside from all the shooting enemies and collecting weapons and ammo and all that, you also have to manage your different abilities. Like in System Shock, you have your different implants and your drugs and all that. In BioShock, you have your plasmids that give you special powers and all that.
That's exactly why I call bullshit on that, because being in the same genre and having somewhat of the same game mechanics does not make you a spiritual successor.
Right. It's like saying every RTS is a spiritual successor to Doom 2.
Yeah, I will grant you that. Well, because BioShock was fundamentally different.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Martin.
Martin is trying to interject.
Interject away.
No, a good example of a good example of a spiritual successor that was made by the original team would be Torchlight and Diablo 2.
Right.
Where Blizzard North, they after they disbanded, they created forgot what it was called. They made Flagship Studios, and they made that I can't remember the name of the game, but it flopped pretty bad. And then they went on to make Torchlight.
Hellgate London.
And that's it was Hellgate London. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually an awesome game, by the way.
Yeah, when I played it originally, it was pretty good. I don't know. I apparently it's still around, but a completely different developer's taken.
Just didn't sell good, did it?
I'm not sure what happened. My friends were really into it. But no, does anyone ever play Torchlight? Did anyone ever?
Oh yeah, I played Torchlight. I don't think I haven't gotten around to playing Torchlight 2, but I really enjoyed Torchlight, especially being that it kind of came out before Diablo 3, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it kind of came out in the time where everyone was waiting for Diablo 3 to come out, and it kind of like scratched that itch. And then when Diablo 3 came out, people played it for a bit, then said, "Hey, original Diablo 3 isn't all that good," until they fixed it.
Yeah,
and
they fixed
people
it.
said, "Hey, yeah, I'm gonna go back and play more Torchlight," or maybe by then Torchlight 2 was out. I don't know, but yeah, I think that was definitely a great game, and it definitely did feel a lot like Diablo 2. Like it just had that really great kind of dungeon crawly, getting loot all at the right time, at the right rate, one more room, one more level.
A lot of people called that a Diablo clone, and I think that's the more derogatory term. How many FPSs were just called Doom clones until they were good enough where they weren't called a Doom clone?
I mean, it's easy enough to say if a game is bad, you can just say, yes, it's a clone of the one that was good, and they didn't do it,
If it's good, it's a spiritual successor. If it's bad, it's a clone. Okay, we've defined it.
No. See. A clone is is a game that tries to ape what a different game has done. Not a remake, not a remaster, not a spiritual successor, none of that sort. It's just a game that tries to feed off the other game's success like a leech. I mean, I can't remember his name, but this dude did a fabulous video of different Prince of Persia knockoffs, including Zorro, which was an absolute shit game. Yeah, and those are clones. Those don't bring anything new to the table other than piss your pants frustration. They're just there to leech off the success of others. I've got one for you. Spin-offs. Not spiritual successors, not not remakes, not reboots, not anything. Spin-offs like Privateer was to Wing Commander.
Renegade.
There you go. When you say that Torchlight, even though I haven't played it, so I don't actually know, Torchlight must have been like a spin-off of Diablo.
No, because
it
it's
took
not
place
set in the same continuity.
Yeah, different universe.
Different universe.
Same devs, same idea, different world.
Yeah.
But like an Ultima Underworld.
The Diablo license, so.
So here's, I want to put a question on the table, some food for thought with regards to spiritual successors, because they feel, in many ways, that is the least understood of the definitions or sort of categories that we're discussing here. So I would argue that BioWare's game, the Mass Effect series,
yes,
is a spiritual successor to the Star Control series.
I thought the developers said that they were making that because they didn't have the Star Wars license anymore, that it was more of a KOTOR spiritual successor.
No, actually, the developer was, and I think I even said it in the Star Control show, that, yeah, the intention, maybe they were trying to make a Star Wars game at the same time, but the gameplay, especially kind of the landing on planets, the exploring, the picking up of resources and upgrades and stuff like that, that was a direct spiritual successor to Star Control.
See, and I always thought it was the KOTOR spiritual successor. We're talking Mass Effect, right?
Yeah, we're talking Mass Effect. I mean, obviously they took elements of KOTOR.
Yeah, because it's not older. I mean, obviously they would.
Yeah, they took the engine, they took the UI, they took the light and dark Renegade Paragon thing from KOTOR. But
this is why I love this discussion. I'm learning stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The whole was it Star Control? No, it was the thing before Star Control. What was it? I covered it.
What are you on about?
The spiritual successor for Mass Effect. I don't know if I don't think it was Star Control. There was an even older game that I covered that I think you're talking about.
Starflight. There's a whole bunch.
Starflight. That was it. It was Starflight, I think. Did I cover Starflight?
Yeah, but it could be argued that Star Control 2 is a spiritual successor to Starflight.
Starflight, exactly. Yeah.
Agree with that, but there you are.
Yeah, so, I guess Starflight is the one where if you don't save your game, your whole disk gets corrupted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then that's the one I was thinking of, but I will agree with your interpretation as well.
Is that a bug or just a dick move?
The reason it did that was because the way the game didn't have save files. It would actually modify, so you had to make a copy of your game disk, because as you played through the game, it would actually modify the core game files to save your state.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's horrible. It was horrible.
It was the early '80s.
That's crazy.
I mean,
still learning.
Yeah, Starflight. I'm like episode 58, Starflight. I just looked it up. That's the one. That's the one I was thinking of. But yes,
Martin. I think Martin's trying to say something. Yeah.
I was just saying that's why I like your show, because the weird things that you'd have to do back in the day just to save your game, and how something like that. The concept alone, just like you could lose your entire game if you didn't read the instructions or save your game right.
I mean, you could lose your game if your computer hung up.
Right.
No, that's not the consequence of it being an old game. That's just batshit crazy programming technique. I don't know what the hell they were.
Yeah, I think they were trying, because they were trying to fit this. It was a massive game for the time, and it had to fit on one low-density floppy disk, right? So that was the way they figured out to save state. Now, could they come up with a better way? Yeah, probably.
Brian, I've been spending the last 10 or 20 minutes trying to think of an answer to your question. What's my favorite remaster? And I keep coming up short. I think I'm going to go with Grim Fandango because for all that game's flaws, which I won't go into here, that's a pretty damn good remaster. The point-and-click interface doesn't really work.
I played with tank controls.
Well, I played with a combination of tank controls and the mouse, because you can't do it with the mouse alone. And if you do it with the keyboard alone, then you're at least it drove me insane. But the new shading and stuff makes my computer cough and shit. But by and large, I think it's a great remaster. So I'm gonna go with that.
I have to say, when I was playing the remaster, I was actually smiling. Like I was like, this is a good game.
What about Monkey Island?
Those are terrible remasters.
I couldn't even get through it.
I'm gonna go on record here and say those are actually not very good games. You can
The
shoot me.
originals weren't good games either, or the remasters?
All of the above, yes.
Okay.
Oh, blasphemy! Ooh, shots fired.
Well, I know if Anatoly was on this call, he would have some things to say about the Monkey Island remasters because he's very adamant about especially the first one. I actually don't think the second one is that bad.
The second one is better. Yeah, the second one is better. But the first one is just the speech slapped on top of the original scum, and not even very good graphics updates.
If you really want to get Anatoly riled up, just mention the Loom CD version. You'll go.
Hey! Oh, let's go into all of that again. That was so much fun the last time.
I would actually.
I think he's said everything he's ever going to say about that ever since he's made his video.
So do you guys
and he's going to keep saying it.
Yeah. Do you guys think that? Because I know Brian Moriarty did his really great postmortem on Loom, and he said the whole thing about Wadget Eye and the other and who was it, Double Fine and somebody else who would potentially remake it. Do you think that Loom could benefit from a remaster?
Hell yes.
Possibly.
I think any game could possibly benefit from a remaster. That's my opinion.
I think
love
Loom
remasters.
Loom is a challenging one because I think Loom, especially with all the controversy around the VGA version, and even Brian Moriarty said it himself in the postmortem, he feels that upgrading it to VGA was detrimental to the game.
Yeah, it lost its charm.
Yeah,
and that's the point about Loom. Loom in particular is by far, I'm just going to say by far. It does kind of fuck it. Loom is the prettiest EGA game ever. Loom is the prettiest EGA game ever, closely followed by Space Quest 3. But Loom is by far, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So why would you go back and remaster it?
Let me be.
There are other games that just look like shit that you want to remaster, but why remaster Loom?
So let me challenge you on that. If you take the essence of Loom, you take the gameplay, you take the story, the controls, basically everything that is Loom, and you just render it, right? You take really talented artists and you just rebuild the graphics. You take an orchestra, you re-record the music. You do the same dialogues with really talented voice actors. The same game 100%. Would that not be just a really good update? I would argue.
But it depends on how they do it. If
then
they're
the thing, right?
faithful to the original work.
No, but then we're back to the Monkey Island remasters. I mean, that was the exact intention behind those, and did that work out okay? Nah, not really.
But that was more of a technical execution problem, right? Not a theoretical, like, hey, a remaster would help.
No, they were just shit artists, but the intent was the exact same. Just build a better world.
With regards,
Could have made a better remake of Monkey Island?
You could, but again, why would you? Because these are, I mean, Dave the Tentacle remaster is coming out. Again, I'm thinking, why would you mess with that? It's gorgeous in its own right. But then again, Grim Fandango was not gorgeous in its own right. It was pretty. Don't get me wrong. It was a very pretty game at the time it came out. But the reason they did the remaster was not because they thought it could look better. They just kind of did that because now they had the opportunity to do it. The problem with Grim Fandango was you couldn't get it anywhere. So that's the reason why they did it. Dave the Tentacle you can get.
Didn't Monkey Island, isn't one of the remakes that lets you switch back to the original graphics?
Yeah, both of them let you do that.
They both do.
So a remaster that has that ability for Loom, would that work for you?
Why are you asking me? I don't think Loom needs a remaster. There's no point in remastering Loom. It's beautiful as it is.
There is. I mean,
there are games far more deserving of a remaster. There are games that look absolutely terrible by today's standard that could really benefit from a remaster. I would dearly love to see a remaster of Beneath the Steel Sky where you get Dave Gibbons' beautiful background art and the sprites updated into a higher resolution. Not that it isn't beautiful today, but that game would really benefit from a high resolution remaster.
Okay, so this is a good topic, a good direction to go into. Does anyone else have any other games that they would like to see remastered?
Yes, I would like to see Zork remastered with glorious Consolas fonts and.
Awesome. You know, people have talked about making a remake of Zork with, you know, a graphical adventure version of that, and that would take. I think I'm with Troels on that. That's another example where it take away from the spirit of Zork. It was meant to be a text adventure.
It's meant to be in your
there
mind.
actually was a graphical version of Zork in Japan.
Really?
Oh, so it did actually happen.
Yeah,
Okay,
they released it for the Sega Saturn, I believe.
The second you try to render a GRU graphically, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Well, even the graphical versions of
Wait, that wasn't me swearing.
Zork games did not actually show grooves. They just, you know, kind of implied their presence with creepy eyes or whatnot. So, you know, in that sense, that could work.
I just thought of a different answer to Brian's question, but this is fan territory. I thought the remaster, the point-and-click remaster of Maniac Mansion 256, was pretty good. I actually thought that improved on the game. And someone also did a point-and-click remaster of Leisure Suit Larry 2, which I also thought was pretty damn good. So in that sense.
After playing the point-and-click version of Maniac Mansion, I can't play the original anymore. It's just it feels too ugly and archaic now. So that's a great example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing with Maniac Mansion, of course, is that it was one of the first point-and-click adventure games, and so the interface is really, really dated nowadays.
But you could make the same argument for the remaster that they did of the first Monkey Island game. No, not the SVGA blah 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 or whatever the hell, the new one, not the anniversary thing. The one where they changed the interface to Day of the Tentacle style or Monkey Island 2 style verb and interface inventory. Sorry, my mind is gone. That one, and I know Anatoly hates that one, and I can sort of see why, because it takes away, all the freedom that you had in the first Monkey Island games, poke and prod and shit. Yeah, still, that kind of applies there. That's not a good use of that stuff. But Maniac Mansion, all the verbs are just fucking in the way. Sorry, it's just convoluted as hell. So yeah, the 256, I love it, and it's fan made. I thought that was so brilliant.
Well, the remaster that I wanted actually came out. Homeworld, I've been wanting them to do that forever, but if I had to go for like a second best, whenever the Nintendo DS came out, I was basically fantasizing about a handheld Command and Conquer game.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I thought, like, wow, what a perfect opportunity to try to bring RTSs to a handheld. No one's tried it in the almost 10 years the damn console's been out. But, old pipe dream of mine is to have the original Command & Conquer, give it a facelift, probably try to reboot the franchise in that way.
I'm actually surprised no one at EA, because EA owns Command & Conquer rights right now, right?
Yeah, they own everything.
Yeah, why they haven't created a mobile version of the original?
Probably because Dungeon Keeper sucks so much ass on
They
mobile.
did try one. There was a Red Alert 3 port, like a prequel port to the iPhone.
Okay.
And it was okay, but no one bought it. So that was they dipped their toes in the water, and the exec said, we didn't make any money, so why should we bother making a mobile RTS?
You're sort of forgetting that the control mechanisms are tightly coupled with the genres.
Right.
You can't really. I mean, if you take Grim Fandango and its tank controls as one example, can you even remotely sanely translate an RTS interface from the typical keyboard plus mouse combination to touch interface?
I think on RTS you could.
Yeah.
Have you ever played RTS on a tablet?
You probably couldn't get as competitive as StarCraft or even Generals with all the hotkeys. But RTSs have been translated to a controller many times very successfully. All the Command & Conquer 64 and Red Alert on the PlayStation, I feel, were pretty good. StarCraft 64 even was. You could control everything you needed to play the game.
That's it. You're not going to be like doing the esport competitions with them, but for a bathroom game, it'll be fun.
And there actually was also, since we're on the topic of Command and Conquer, Command and Conquer itself is a spiritual successor to Dune 2.
Dune, right. Oh,
Ah,
snap.
there you go.
Forgot
Yeah,
about
right.
Dune 2 later got a remake with the Command and Conquer engine called Dune 2000.
Correct.
And
Right.
Red Alert is a spin-off. Red Alert is a
It
spin-off.
is a spin-off.
Yeah, also
Oh,
true.
it comes together.
And
Ah.
Dune 2 is another one of those ones that's not a sequel.
Yeah, but,
Oh,
yeah.
that's true. That's true. That's really, really
yeah,
weird.
that's a different story altogether.
Yeah.
But actually,
If you want that story, listen to Joe's podcast on that.
Right. You should have little chat bubbles that pop up. It's like, see episode.
Reference
blah, blah, blah.
episode 37. Yeah. Now I know for me, and maybe I'm just riding high off of the Star Wars trailer from Friday, which by God almost made me cry.
I haven't watched it. I'm completely just
Stop
just
sitting
sitting.
and watch it right now.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
me
just
neither. I
completely
haven't
sitting
watched
under a rock until the movie comes out. Then I'll
it's
watch
like-
it with no expectations.
Every time I watch the trailer, I'm picking out something new that's blowing my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe because I'm riding high on that, I really, really, really want a reboot of X-Wing, a reboot of TIE Fighter. Like,
Yes.
Everybody wants that.
Everyone.
Yes,
My problem is sometimes I dream of a reboot and then I get it and it's
You're like,
disappointing. And I think Martin talked about that. But like SimCity, I don't know if you call that a reboot, but the new SimCity.
yeah.
See, everyone feels what I'm saying on that. I love the idea of a new modern SimCity.
Now,
And
so the answer to a new modern SimCity, which I just talked about in the last news show, is Cities Skylines.
Yeah.
That's a successor. I wouldn't say that's a sequel. That's a successor.
It's a successor.
Yeah.
No,
It's
that's
a successor to SimCity.
spiritual successor because they don't have the rights. And as far as the story I've been told is that these were actually a group of guys who were so disappointed with the new SimCity that they went, "Fuck it, we'll just build our own."
Yeah, basically, basically what it is it sort of a remastered version of SimCity 4. I mean, it's not. It's clearly not that. But they took SimCity 4, they made it more modern. You know, they added some newer features. They added the ability to mod. They added all this. Or did SimCity 4 have mods?
Yes.
Yeah, it did, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say they even took the color
that
coding?
you could.
Yeah, they took like the RCI indicator, residential, commercial, industrial. That's there. I'm like, I feel like I'm the only person who's like going around going, how is EA not suing these people?
Oh, when you talked about it, I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
They probably are.
Yeah.
Well,
they
you know,
probably
maybe they're going to be cool
EA
about
or
it. Sometimes people are cool about, spiritual successors that borderline stealing their ideas, and some people are cool with it. Like,
Diablo and Torchlight.
yeah. The most common, our most recent version, Axiom Verge. Reggie from Nintendo looked at that and said, "Yeah, that definitely looks like Metroid, but we're not making a Metroid right now." So basically, it was sort of Nintendo saying, "Okay, if we're not making one and you want to make a Metroid, go ahead."
That's funny because.
And
Nintendo
why are they
has
not
sued-
making a new Metroid?
That's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
Nintendo has sued people for making some other games, like the Super Gianna Sisters or whatever they were called.
Great Gianna Sisters.
Great Gianna Sisters. Yeah.
Well, that was a ripoff. To be honest, it's a good ripoff, but it's a fucking ripoff. Sorry.
It kind of was.
Trolls, slow down, man.
Everybody got a booze.
If we're not careful, Tomer's going to pass out on us. Tomer,
Dude,
I
I'm all in, and we're only like 40 minutes in, so yeah, take it easy, yo.
I'm sorry. I'll start bleeping myself.
Well, I say, Tomer, I do appreciate the fact that you and I have different opinions. I actually greatly appreciate that.
Oh,
it creates a more lively discussion.
Exactly. This would be boring if we all felt the same. We all just said, "I agree."
I agree.
So especially to the console people, has anyone played DuckTales Remastered?
I would love to have brought that
meaning to.
up, but I didn't think that qualified.
I've been meaning to.
Here's my problem with that game: is DuckTales I loved as a kid, and then I revisited DuckTales on an emulator with having save state. And I was doing great on that, and I did that kind of to warm up for the remaster, and then the remaster came out, and I was horrible at it.
That is a brutally difficult. That's like another world difficulty.
Yeah, I couldn't get past a single
I
zone.
don't know.
I
I think
wouldn't say
another world
that's
is
a
just a little
remaster
bit more
because
forgiving.
there's a lot of stages that they changed to make it better or longer. Because some of those stages had some weird things going on. It like the final boss is like a rope chase that they try to emulate the intros from the TV show, and they changed that into a full-fledged boss fight. There's some parts of some of the levels where they changed them up because they were just random screens that had nothing in them or whatever, and all the bosses they last longer now because they were all just it was a weird. So I wouldn't call it a remaster more than it was a remake.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
It started as a remaster, and then they decided why stop there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a good example of it. I just wish there was a way I could turn down the difficulty just one notch.
But it's good that you actually brought that up, because there was another Capcom game that got a remake a while back called Bionic Commando Rearmed, which is
I love that.
Remake of the original Bionic Commando on the NES. And I never played the NES version, but the Rearmed version, I loved the shit out of that.
Oh, I played the NES version, at least a little bit, and I remember it being quite difficult.
I played the first level of the NES version a billion times and never saw a rest of that game.
Sounds like Battletoads.
Yeah.
I probably would have had the same experience, but Rearmed, it was difficult but fair. They redesigned it to such an extent that, a lot of the levels and the bosses made a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah. You know what's a disappointment of that? Is they made a sequel to a remake, and the sequel was not good. And I think the reason why sequel wasn't as good is because they were solely depending on their own inspiration. And I found that some game designers are better at the technical side of things than they are at the creativity side. So when they decided to create their own from raw, they created a 2 from nothing. There was no Bionic Commando 2 on the NES. So that sequel just, in my opinion, maybe you guys disagree, but that sequel just didn't have the same feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I tried playing that, but I just lost interest at some point, and I don't really know why.
And I felt the same way, and I thought about it a lot, and that was my conclusion with pondering it. Is I just think that they didn't have the same creativity juices that the original game had. That it's a difference between taking somebody's creativity, like we talked about, making it better, and really coming up with your own. And I'm the same way. I'm not that creative. I can't create great levels, but I love taking things and making it better.
Mm-hmm.
Did Mike Patton do the voice for the Bionic Commando in the sequel? Because then I think that's why it failed.
No.
Anyway,
and I don't know the answer.
Interestingly, did you know that there are Simon the Sorcerer 4 and 5 games?
Yeah.
Some German developer ran with the license after AdventureSoft kind of lost their shit around Simon the Sorcerer 3D and put out 2 sequels in German, no less, which then got translated. I didn't even know about this until Story Beasts came out and said, "Hey, we're doing Simon the Sorcerer 6."
What the?
You started at 3.
Did they ever get English translations?
Is your first puzzle in these Simon the Sorcerer games to annex the Sudetenland?
I have no idea. I haven't actually played them.
Does anybody know if they have any English versions of those? Or is it only in German?
Sure. No, I'm pretty sure they do. I'm pretty sure they have English versions.
I'll have to look those up.
Some obscure German developer did that, and they count as official sequels.
They bought the license?
I think they just picked it up off the floor that AdventureSoft left it on.
Cool.
So I'm trying to think. I mean, we've been talking a lot about, even games like Grim Fandango and remasters and remakes, and how we like them, but they're not that great. Like, are there any that are like vastly superior?
Coming up short here.
I personally would argue Rearmed is superior to the NES version, but that's just me.
Yeah, and Black Mesa, right?
Yeah.
I would say Star Fox 64 is better than the original Star Fox, as much as I love the original Star Fox.
Well, that's more of a sequel than a remake, right?
No, that's a remake of the 64 version on the 3DS. And if you're going to go that route, then if we're going to go back to consoles, then I love the Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D.
Mm-hmm. Can you sort of repeat the question? I think I got it, but not quite as precisely. So are there
too many drinks?
Yeah. Are there any remakes that are better than the original?
Remakes.
Or whatever, remakes, remasters, any.
Overseer. I'm just going to put Overseer out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Easy.
I wasn't talking about the 3DS Star Fox. I was talking about Star Fox 64. It was a remake of the Super NES.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the remake of Star Fox 64. In that case, Star
Yeah,
Fox
no,
64
that's
on
what I
the
meant.
64 is a sequel, is it? Or do
Yeah.
you feel it's a
No.
remake of the Super Nintendo?
You can almost say it's a reboot, but it's actually a remake.
Of the
Oh,
Super
no,
Nintendo version?
No, it's a reboot because they changed a lot of the lore too. So then then that wouldn't count.
But
So
again, a reboot is just a remake, in my opinion at least. Those are synonyms.
I think a reboot. Here's what I think about reboots is it's a lot of times they don't have the same. I mean, have you played the Tomb Raider reboot? That's.
Oh no!
that's
Wait!
completely
I see what you're saying. I mean, Mortal Kombat has been doing this shit as well. I mean, they basically took their own thing and rebooted it. Okay, I see the difference now.
I mean, let's
something and then
A reboot is
nuking
when they
it.
completely start from scratch and they just try to go into a new direction compared to what happened before.
Batman
Or at least
Begins.
from a story direction, yeah.
Yeah, Batman Begins is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
In the cinematic version.
I mean, comics reboot their universes like every couple of years, so.
Yeah.
And then they
Or the
weld the
Spider-Man
universes
movie.
together. Yeah, comics. If we were having this conversation about comics, it would be horrible.
Yeah.
Oh no! I'd be right out. I wouldn't even show up to that discussion.
Me neither, probably. I don't read a whole lot of comics.
So you guys.
I just watch Linkara every week. That's it.
There you go.
So Joe, what's your answer? Do you? what do you think is better?
Joe. Let's
Joe.
point the spotlight at you, sir.
Remake, remaster. It's better than the original.
Better than the original? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a hard one. I'm trying
I
to think.
think Black Mesa is better than the original, but you guys disagree?
Yeah, Black Mesa is a really damn good remake, especially for something fan made. But there are a few niggles with it that weren't in the original version. I feel like a lot of the time in Black Mesa, you really have to over-abuse the crouch jump move, which you didn't have to do in the original, for example. And it is ridiculously unbalanced and difficult at times compared to the original.
Okay, so here's one.
Scot-free.
So because I'm into Space Sims and all that, I've been playing a ton of Elite Dangerous.
Ooh.
I think Elite Dangerous is a remake of the original Elite. It's not a remaster because there's way more stuff.
Is it sure not a sequel? I don't know anything about the story between the two.
There really, as far as I understand it, there isn't really a story in Elite Dangerous as of yet. They're kind of
a setting.
Yeah, it's just more of, and I didn't play the original Elite a ton.
It's an open world.
Yeah, they're open world games, so they're creating some modicum of story in Elite Dangerous by creating community events and different factions are sending people on different missions for different goals, but there's no it's not like World of Warcraft or something where it's like there's this progressive story that continues on and on. It's just this open world where you do stuff. And
I got one.
Mm-hmm.
I got one.
And so to me, if Elite Dangerous is a superior remaster or remake of the original.
What you got, Troels?
I got one, and I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. Probably The Hangover. Best remaster ever. Carmageddon on the fucking smartphone. Sorry.
There you go.
Oh my god, that thing is beautiful. Because I was playing Reincarnated a couple of weekends ago over at a friend's place who had a computer that could actually run it, and I'm really sorry, but it's not as much fun as the first game. I don't know if I'm just completely in love with the first game. I didn't even think Carpocalypse Now was a pretty good game.
Sorry to interject, but I'm really sorry, but I didn't hear a clink in the swear jar just now, and I did.
There we go.
There you go. But yeah, Carmageddon on the smartphone is just the same game. It's just better. It runs smoothly. The controls are perfect. The game has been more balanced.
I was going to say that. I think it's a touch easier because I had a hell of a time advancing in the PC version.
Yeah.
And on the phone it was great.
Would you rather have that on the PC, the phone version on the PC, though? Because that's what I was kind of holding off for. Is I'm hoping that exact version will. Normally we get ports from PCs to phones, but this is an example where I want the phone. I just don't like touch controls.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
And that I'll admit, like the touch controls, I enjoy the game. I don't love the touch controls if I had another option.
Right. If you're playing it on an iPad or a tablet, it's really kind of clunky. You kind of have to move your fingers around. But on a phone,
the Android version that I was playing allowed you to change the buttons in the UI to where you needed it to be, and I was able to have perfect controls for me. when I was playing Carmageddon.
Unfortunately, my phone looks like that, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
But the thing with the phone version of Carmageddon is basically it is the exact same game as the original with shinier graphics and different controls. So basically, you already have the phone version on the PC. If you play the 3DFX version, it looks pretty much exactly like the phone version.
Right. I guess the only thing that would be nice is if they put the small gameplay tweaks that maybe they don't say they did, but they did, because it is definitely easier to win races.
They did. Nobby has been out acknowledging that they did, make tweaks, make it easier for you to steal cars and stuff. And I completely agree.
Okay, that is true.
Getting the phone version on the PC would actually be really cool because, for one, they could add in network code that doesn't suck. That would be fun. And my entire point about all this was that I eagerly backed Carmageddon Reincarnated on Kickstarter because they were saying that they were going to bring back everything that made the original fun. And what do I get? Well, I get the first level, and that's pretty much everything I expect from a Carmageddon game. They've got polygonal pedestrians, but I can live with that. It's a ton of fun.
At least they're not zombies.
At least they're not zombies. The next level, what is it? It's a mission. It's a mission. What the hell? Dude, this is exactly why I didn't play Carmageddon 2 when it came out, because not only was it ugly as sin, the mission bits were just... Everyone fucking hated them, sorry. Tomer, that one was unintentional. So no, I still prefer the original, and I completely agree. The phone version on the PC with network code, that would be, wet dream.
Mm-hmm. Troels, can I ask you something, by the way?
Of course.
What exactly do you plan to do with the stuff you're putting in your swear jar when all this is over?
They're my own money, so I'm going to go get more beer.
Okay, that works for me. But, okay, when we're talking about favorite remakes, I actually got a good example of my own.
Go for
it. The King's Quest remakes by AGD.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Especially,
I happen to know the dude who wrote 2 and 3.
Especially 2 and 3 because they expand so much of the story and they redesign the puzzles where they make fucking sense. Pardon my French. But they improve immensely on the originals, and I didn't mind the originals that much because I played them with a walkthrough, and they have their own charm, but when you see what the remakes did to, integrate them into the rest of the series story-wise and everything and have them be fun to play, it's night and day.
Yeah, I mean, the King's Quest games are not pinnacles of game design, I would say.
Wasn't the third game redone twice? Once by Infamous,
by AGD and by
AGD.
Infamous Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the 3 didn't have the same amount of story problems that 2 had. I remember Daniel, the dude who wrote the story, Daniel Stacy, was over, and we were naked and on the couch, and he was saying that what he did with King's Quest 2, or at least what he tried to do, was give it a story, because it didn't have one in the original.
Yeah, it had the barest semblance of a story. King's Quest 3 had more of a story. You had this boy who was a slave of a wizard trying to find out who he really was. They did expand on that and different aspects in the remakes, but the story is pretty much the same.
I haven't actually played them because F King's Quest. I'm gonna go easy on Tomer here, but you all know the drill. But to those of you who have played King's Quest 3, the 2 different remakes, which one is the best? Is it the AGD or the Infamous one?
I actually haven't finished the Infamous Quest 1. There were some aspects to it that I didn't like so much. I don't really remember what it was. It's been so long. Actually, okay, I didn't really like the voice acting, and some of the way they tried to expand the story. Like the introduction felt kind of awkward to me, where the AGD version handled that better. It was written better, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So I would imagine that Infamous stuck closer to the original story. Because that's what it did with Space Quest 2, anyway.
And I actually have to say, I think I might prefer the remake of Space Quest 2 to the original.
I do not. I fucking do not. I fucking do not prefer the remake of Space Quest 2 to the
See,
original.
this is where I'm out of my wheelhouse because we're just talking about a bunch of games that were before my time.
See, this is where I sit back and listen
Yeah,
to.
exactly.
Well, the SQ2 remake is free, so feel free to go grab
Yeah,
it.
everyone should go play it. And it is, I mean, Akago can get back to swearing in just a minute, but I really, really liked the way that Steven and the dudes did Space Quest 2 for a game that was kind of maligned within the Space Quest community. Let's see Martin yawning. Don't worry, we'll get back to consoles in a minute.
Shut up.
I mean, they really put in some. I mean, they honored the original. I felt they truly honored it. Tried to make it point and clicky, and then they put in that little touch at the end, and then they put in that touch where you stick a explosive device up a bunny's ass. I thought that was brilliant.
Okay.
Oh.
I wasn't going to go into that much more detail, but that's exactly one of the things I didn't like. They tried to put their own spin on things, and it just felt too sophomoric to me.
Yeah, but that
Space Quest is sophomoric.
Yeah, Space Quest is pretty
But
sophomoric.
they went too far, too extreme with it, especially in terms of some of the deaths and just how over the top gory it was.
What
Have you played Space Quest 3? What? Sorry.
But
Go ahead, Tom.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me.
It is.
So, hey,
sorry.
Mark, did you already say what your favorite was?
Of what?
Of the remake, remasters, whatever?
I
We're
think he
talking
said
about our favorites.
Star Fox.
64.
Oh, yeah, Star Fox, your favorite. What did you say?
Star Fox 64.
64.
Yeah.
My favorite, honestly, is not. I don't think anyone's going to agree, but it's just the source port of Descent because I'm just such a huge Descent fan. I just love the 6 Degrees of Freedom, and I was super psyched about that Kickstarter, and I hope I don't get let down. But
Did the Kickstarter make it? Because it was 3 days.
They
and then-
just made it. They were like
Yeah.
they hit like 601.
I lost sleep.
Ooh,
over that.
yes.
I did. I was so excited about that.
That feels good. That feels good.
Brian, you had that crazy controller, don't you?
It's a PlayStation 1 dual analog joystick, and I played Descent with that with a PSX to USB adapter. This thing was the predecessor to the DualShock controllers.
You know what? It's sad because I was telling Joe that I could only get towards the end of Wing Commander once I plugged in my Xbox 360 controller because I was so used to the Super Nintendo version, and then I just started kicking ass in that game, and I felt really bad. But what are you gonna do?
That damn Super Nintendo version of Wing Commander.
You're missing out, Joe.
I know.
My other favorite remake is not PC.
Sorry.
No problem. My other favorite is not PC, but it's the I'm a big Metroid fan, and the Metroid Zero Mission was definitely a favorite remake for me. If we're counting everything, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah,
I've got to go back because I played Metroid. I played Metroid 2, and then I played what was the first one on the Wii? Metroid Prime 3 or something?
Metroid Prime 3 was the first on the Wii.
Yeah, those are the only Metroid games I played, and so I know there's a bunch.
Well, you get the Metroid trilogy on the Wii U, and then play Zero Mission because that's really good, and then you go to Metroid Fusion, and you can just get Metroid Hunters. Metroid Hunters is if you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just put this out there? I have never understood, I know this is slightly off topic, but I've never understood people who play FPSs on consoles. Maybe it's just me, but those
it's just you.
absolutely ridiculous.
Well, have you ever played FPSs on a PC? Right? They're brutal, right? So people are just used to the consoles because they're easy. I don't really like playing FPSs on a console, but
all right,
there's just more people. It evens the playing field when you have auto aim, right?
That's probably why I don't like it, because I spent so much time trying to figure out how to play Quake with a mouse, because I started playing Doom with a keyboard and went to LANs and played Doom with a keyboard, and then I started trying to play with a mouse, got my ass kicked until there was a switch, and I started kicking everyone else's ass because now I could aim better. I didn't have auto aim.
Well, Metroid Prime is not really an FPS. It plays in FPS mode, like the view.
It's a first-person adventure shooter.
Yeah,
it's more like
an adventure shooter. Okay, now I get everything.
Because there's hardly any free aim because the trilogy lets you use the Wiimote if you want to, but on the GameCube you would just lock on, and it was more like a circle strafe. Where once you lock on, you would jump out of the way and try to find their weak spot.
Yeah, but most of the game is centered around exploration and puzzle solving instead
it's
of
not
action.
a Twitch shooter.
Yeah, Tomer's been trying to talk for like a minute, so go.
Sorry.
I know how that feels.
Sorry.
It wasn't a minute, but I just wanted to mention that Metroid Prime is to first-person shooters sort of like Abuse is to platformers. But, I mean, it's just not the same control scheme. It doesn't map. Troels, you're creeping me the fuck out.
It doesn't matter.
He has that effect on everybody.
But I don't think the intention is
video camera aimed where it is.
Now, everyone on YouTube don't know. It just cross-cuts between people who are talking. They can't actually see the little bar at the bottom here. So I haven't creeped out any viewers.
So that's
only Tomer.
Actually,
so
they're probably
consider
more
that-
creeped out because I didn't see what we saw. What did you do?
I just
Leave it
moved
to-
around. I thought I had to let my cat out, and I just Tomer caught a little glimpse of a bare knee, and apparently he went all woppy and
I know whose knees it is.
It was just such a beautiful knee.
I'm wearing underpants. Don't worry.
Getting back to Metroid.
So underpants and Metroid.
I don't think like Martin said.
Underail the conversation a little bit because I'm just looking back at sort of the proposed questions, and we completely ignored everything other than the first question. I feel.
Oh no!
That's true. We talked about our favorites. We talked about ones we didn't like.
We sort of talked about our favorites, and we talked about one we didn't like, and then we digressed into.
Metroid.
Hey,
Sorry.
we're a bunch of gamers,
Yeah,
man.
I got a list a mile long of remasters and reboots I didn't like, but they're all adventure games, so Martin will be completely left out of that conversation.
Hey, I like the Indiana Jones.
You know what I'd love to see?
I love that one.
Oh, Indiana Jones. Oh, sorry. But you know what I'd really love to see? A Rebel Assault game that didn't suck. I'd love to see. No, seriously.
Well,
I think Joe just sucks at Rebel Assault because I can blow through that stuff with no problem.
yeah, I'm really bad at Rebel Assault.
No, but Rebel Assault is terrible. It's
Yeah, okay. Inherently, just by looking and playing, it is pretty terrible in all.
But
respects.
you could ostensibly do with modern 3D graphics. You could do a Rebel Assault game that didn't suck, that didn't
Right, you
control
could.
like
You
anything.
could.
Isn't that basically what the Rogue Squadron games did?
Unicorns might fly on my butt. I'm sorry, Rebel Assault was basically an ill-conceived game that had nothing going for it.
No,
How
Rebel Assault
FMV.
is honestly no different than the coin-op arcade shooters that you play at any arcade that you go
That
to.
is true.
Yeah.
It's a rail
But-
shooter.
but- yeah, it's a rail shooter that.
My point.
I mean, like, there's ways you can make it really, really awesome. I recently went into something called a Battle Pod, it's Star Wars Battle Pod,
Yes.
and it was like it was a 4D thing where like it would shake and blow air and all this other crazy stuff. Not that you could probably get that in the home, but the game itself was fun as hell, and Rebel Assault could easily reach something like that. Like you said, there could be a really good Rebel Assault game if someone.
The Battle Pod is sort of certain parts of it are kind of rail shootery.
Right.
I haven't been in it, but I talked about it when I was on the Space Game Junkie podcast, and they were kind of
Hold
going
on
over
a
it.
second. This space pod thing, is that like basically a fancy arcade cabinet?
Yeah, well, you get in it.
Yeah, it's like it's this little bitty cockpit that you walk into and sit down, and then you have a stick used to aim, and you have a throttle that doesn't really do much, and it kind of moves and blows air at you depending on what's going on, and it's pretty awesome.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
I'm actually.
Sounds like Retaliator F-29 with an added air blower on top of it.
You'd have to do one.
on this one.
So this is what I do for a living. I repair arcade games. So
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. Your job is so much cooler than ours.
I drive around to movie theaters and fix the arcade stuff they've got in movie theaters. So yeah.
Where can
do
I
you ever
get
get like people stuffing jam and stuff inside the cabinets, or just kicking the shit out of them?
Yeah. It's just so bad. And soda. It's soda spilled in all my games. You know, people get out of the movies and just want to pour a soda on a game. So.
So your job isn't really as glamorous as we because we think all right, you like solder two wires together and then you spend the rest of the day playing that game. Wow, cool.
Oh, I wish.
Anyway, if they did, last word on Rebel Assault, if they did a remake with fancy graphics that you could pilot and it didn't suck ass, here's another thing I'd dearly love for them to put back in. FMV, because I recently did an episode of Backseat Designers with Fred where we talked about FMV deserves a resurgence. It's not a bad idea. It was just executed terribly.
No, I love FMV. The last game that I think did it really well was Active Treason.
I haven't even heard of that. What the hell is that?
Active Treason was an RTS game. You can get it on Steam. It came out in 2003, and it was.
That's a while back.
Yeah. It came out in 2003. It was one of the first games to use the DVD. So now we got DVD. We can put better looking FMVs. I encourage you to look it up and play it on Steam or look on YouTube.
I suck at RTSs.
Well, it's a really interesting story, and they did a lot of cool FMVs. It is slightly corny. I mean, you're not getting grade A actors. You're getting the B actors, but it looked great and had a nice premise where it was basically an oil crisis causes World War III. So,
oh, cool. Actually, having name actors in FMVs don't usually solve stuff. I'm looking at Ripper, even though Christopher Walken was hilarious, it was just terrible.
Tiberian Sons, James Earl Jones, and
okay.
He did a really good job as General Solomon.
And also Udo Kier in Yuri's Revenge.
Yes.
I will watch anything Udo Kier is in.
So basically all of the Command & Conquer games used FMV, even the later ones.
Oh yeah.
So that's
that was
a recent FMV, more or less.
I thought that one.
When was the last game released again?
It was 2009-ish. It was
like Generals 2 or something like that?
No, it was Command & Conquer 4, and it broke my heart.
Yeah.
I was trying to find that game, Active Treason. Is that what you called it, Martin?
Hold on. Let me double check on that.
Is it Act of Treason?
Yeah, Act of Treason.
Yeah, I'm not finding it.
Wait, Act of Treason I think was the expansion pack. I think it was called Act of War.
Act of War.
Okay. For my money, another interesting remaster would be to go back to an old FMV game, an old FMV title, and remaster the video. Because a lot of these old FMV games had really shitty video.
Yeah,
I remember there was
interlace them?
I was just going to bring that up. There are fan patches out there for Gabriel Knight 2, for instance, where you can de-interlace the video. It's still sucky quality, but hell. But it would really be interesting to go back and let's just say make Harvester's FMV not suck ass. That would be fun.
That's a tall order.
Well,
I think what Troels really wants is a remake of the 11th Hour.
No, that game is perfect the way it is.
Well, a re-release for a remake of Command & Conquer would be really awesome because EA, I've seen photos of it. They own all the original source video that they shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have them, and they have all the old props. They have them in a storage locker somewhere. They're just sitting there on shelves, and they could easily re-release them.
Well, they should totally do that because much of the FMV content, for instance, all the Sierra Online FMV, that's all gone because CUC bought it. CUC Interactive bought it and just blew it out the fucking airlock. There you go, Tomer. Because that's all gone. I'm pretty sure the Rebel Assault 2 FMV is gone as well. So
I don't know. I would be surprised if it was gone because Lucas kept everything.
They did, because I remember the Grim Fandango story is they had to go all around the world trying to get all this stuff back.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I guess it would depend, but I feel like Star Wars stuff they would have kept.
But my thing with Harvester, for instance, would be not to just touch up the original FMV, because it has its charm, but that's really what Gilbert Austin set out to do, a disturbing adventure, and what he did was a fucking hilarious. Sorry, I'm running out of coins here. Was a completely hilarious.
I'm running out of socket.
Tomer said in the group chat that I was getting old, that I wasn't swearing enough. Apparently he wants to get blissed, so I'm just picking up the pace here. Anyway, to actually re-record the video, just actually do the disturbing quote-unquote adventure game that Gilbert Austin wanted to make instead of the hilarious one.
I guess the tough part with making a horror game is actually making it scary. It's the same as making a horror movie. It's like a lot of times they do come off that way.
Right.
Like was it a tech? Like I didn't play Harvester, so was it intended to be like? Was it a technical limitation that caused it to not be scary,
It was
a combination of different matters.
Mm-hmm.
It was they set out to make a really, really disturbing game, and then the FMV that they shot was just even for its time terrible. Blue screen stuff, characters not looking at each other, a bunch of stilted, over-the-top acting, and really, really horrible, horror effect, like gore effects. It was supposed to be a really gory game. What I did like about Harvester, if you look past all the horrible elements, and I don't mean all the laughable elements of it, there's actually some good psychological horror in there as well. Once you get into the Order of the Lodge and you start going through the temples, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's some good psychological stuff in there. It just gets buried under all this shit. So it would be fun to, do it right.
So is it scarier than Phantasmagoria or less scary?
My ass is scarier than Phantasmagoria.
Everything you're just saying sounds like my description of classic Doctor Who.
No.
Doctor Who is scarier than Phantasmagoria.
Old Doctor Who is scary.
Yeah, but you have everything Troll said. You have to look past all the stuff. Sorry.
But Phantasmagoria, there is nothing to salvage in that game. I'm sorry. It's bullshit from start to finish. There's nothing to salvage in there. There is something to salvage in Harvester.
So no remakes of Phantasmagoria from New Sierra.
Well, I'm just gonna empty my swear jar, because every time I bring up Phantasmagoria, I'm just gonna go fuck that game.
All right, so here's something. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with New King's Quest. So that, I guess, is just a sequel, right?
Reboot.
No, that's a reboot.
Or is it a reboot? But it's Graham telling stories. So will he be telling different stories, or are they?
Yeah,
just...
he'll be covering several of the games.
We don't know if this is the same Graham as in the original continuity. He could just be telling an entirely new story that is kind of the same as the original, but
different,
embellished.
Has more detail, that sort of thing. Blech.
Well, it's not a remake. It's a retelling. It's a reboot. It's a complete reboot of the series. Ostensibly setting the scene for more, kind of a spin-offy King's Quest type games. I guess
that's quite possible. Are we excited about it? Here's a good one.
I'm
interested to see what's going.
To hell with King's Quest.
Well, you just don't like King's Quest, Joel.
That's exactly it. I don't like King's Quest. I don't like anything that has. I can't get my head into the whole sword and sorcery, chivalry. I'm going to save you. I'm so heroic kind of shit. I've never been into that. I've never watched a Lord of the Rings movie without falling asleep. So to hell with King's Quest.
And that's why they made Space Quest for you.
There you
exactly.
Go.
So to make a counterpoint to Troels here, I actually don't have an issue with this sort of chivalrous sword and sorcery setting. I just thought they were basically shitty games.
There's that too.
Except for 6.
So 6 was great.
Are you excited for it, Joe?
I'm very excited for it. I'm interested to see what they do. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a pure adventure, which is probably something else that'll irritate trolls. But there's going to be a couple
I'm cool with that.
Go ahead.
No, because they've come out and said, all right, there's some jumping in it, but the jumping is automatic. It's an adventure game. There are some purists out there who are getting their panties in a bunch because apparently it's not 100% point-and-click adventure. But as Fred will say on Backseat Designers, he's really sick of this conservatism that's in the adventure game community.
Hipster adventure game designers.
Exactly. Because the thing I love about adventure games is that you can take your time. You're not in any danger of getting sideswiped by some gruel, or if you stand around for too long, some zombie will come up and munch your face off. You can basically walk away from the game without pausing it, get a beer, come back, and that's it. And King's Quest does sound like it's gonna carry on that tradition. Once you meet the dragon, he's just gonna stand there until you do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as that's in place, then you can have all the jumping you want.
That makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see. I guess because this is also, I guess the new Sierra has did they release Geometry Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they released Geometry Wars already, which I don't know. Doesn't really strike me as. It's not my memories of Sierra. I mean, I like Geometry Wars.
Been seeing a lot on Twitter about this other game they're doing called Shiftlings.
I haven't heard about it.
Weird, cartoony kind of graphics. What the hell is that game about?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Just some weird alien stuff.
It's an original IP, right? Revisit of old Sierra stuff, is it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Everyone just went silent. Okay,
We don't
no one
know.
knows.
Yeah, you're talking about Sierra and old games. What am I supposed to say?
It's where we learn from you. Keep talking.
Yeah,
There
keep
we
talking, soaking it in.
I'd like to see a remaster of The Dig.
That's a game I've been.
One that wasn't boring as hell?
I don't know why I loved that game.
I liked it
Like,
too, but
I like the graphics. I like the setting. I like the music is amazing.
Oh, the music is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
sure. The music.
That
is
was like
fantastic,
in high
and the
school, that
graphics
was
are
like-
pretty.
Yeah, that was my studying music. I listened to the Dig side. I got it from the LucasArts Company store on CD,
Nice.
and I listened to it while I was studying because it was just so like ethereal and great and whatever. And I don't know. I have the novelization of The Dig.
Mm.
So for some reason, whenever we discuss remakes, remasters, we somehow sort of converge on adventure games. And I would argue that actually some of the better remakes, remasters, are not of adventure games.
That is true.
Exactly. You're very, very true. Very true. Because adventure games are really, really hard, as we've seen with Monkey Island, as we've seen with Broken Sword, are really, really hard to remaster or to remake. For that, for my money, the only really good one was the Maniac Mansion 256. Even Beneath the Steel Sky remastered or remade or whatever the hell it was still a lazy job.
It's kind of the reason why people don't try to remake Citizen Kane or colorize it, because it's a product of its own medium.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really want to change what it was, because that was part of it.
Well, eventually they're going to remake it.
No, here's the problem with remaking at least adventure games, or for that matter, any game. Usually when they do a remake of a game, it's a very well-loved, beloved classic that they want to update and do something to, and all the fans get completely pissy because, of course, they're messing with the classic. They're fucking shit up. I'm sorry. What they should do is take a game that was ostensibly a good idea, but completely fucked. Sorry.
Man.
A game that was ostensibly a good idea, but somehow messed up in execution, or they didn't get around to doing what they were supposed to do. So take a game that sucked and fix it, like Harvester.
Yeah, no, I mean that'd be cool. I mean, I think, like, I was a big fan of simulators in general. I think recently there's been a really big resurgence in simulation games, and I would love to see, a new Falcon or a new Aces of the Pacific or something like that.
Right. It's I'm trying to think of games that aren't adventure games that you could go back and fix up stuff. That,
yeah, okay.
Can
I was
can I
thinking of
give you an
another adventure game
example?
myself that I wanted to talk about.
Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one game that I would love to see get a proper remake is an old adventure game called Dreamweb. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea, because that game had a really phenomenal idea, and the play screen was like the size of a effing postage stamp.
Well, okay, not just that, but the overall premise. It's set in this dystopian future, and you play this perfectly ordinary guy who, through his dreams, is contacted by these mystical watchers or whatever, and told to kill people to save the world. And so it's this very interesting setup for what could be a very intimidating kind of psychological horror story. Is this really happening, or is it all in his head? But the game kind of skirts the issue, and it's really violent and disturbing at times, and it has a very good atmosphere. But story-wise, there is just so much that could be expanded upon that I would love to see in a remake.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it would be interesting if we're talking about remaking games that are not of an adventure game of the genre of adventure, but I think it would be interesting to see if there are some adventures that you could remake into other styles. Like, I always thought that, we were talking about Mass Effect a little while back. I think a lot of adventure games would, do well moving more into kind of a pseudo RPG-ish style.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling about Dreamwed. It would probably make kind of a good survival horror-ish game where you're kind of exploring around and solving puzzles, and every once in a while you get to shoot stuff, because that was part of the original game as well, where you had to use your gun at certain points to kill people and make sure you didn't get killed in return.
For me personally, I would hate to see a remaster or a remake of Dreamweb that went in a different genre direction, mainly because, like I said, I like the leisurely pace of adventure games. But I like the idea of taking a beloved classic and turning it into a different genre. For my money, I would actually go the reverse order, and I've never understood why there isn't a Star Wars adventure game, for instance.
Right. Well, there is one being made right now by a fan called Han Solo Adventures.
Oh yeah, that's right. That one is brilliant. Go check that one out. But I would love to see I don't know.
Never tried to make something like that. There isn't any like hidden like devs leaking anything back from the day where we try to make an adventure game, but ended up being something else.
I haven't heard of anything like that.
No.
I mean,
I missed the first part. What game are you talking about?
No, just any. You said there's never been a Star Wars adventure game, and I was just wondering if there was ever any an attempt, even at a concept stage, to get anything off the ground.
There was that Yoda Stories thing that was like these little desktop coffee.
Yeah, that was more of a continuation of the Indiana Jones desktop adventures game.
Right.
Yeah.
I seem to recall Ron Gilbert saying they had that idea, but for the longest time they weren't allowed to touch the Star Wars license back when it was
until the 90s. So they couldn't.
Until the 90s, and then they just hopped on the Star Wars train to infinity.
Yeah, it was Rebel Assault and X-Wing were kind of in parallel development because they finally either George went on vacation or something, and they were able to do it, but.
Because I think of, for instance, Warcraft Adventures, which I thought was a really good idea, and which actually got very, very far in development. There's even a Let's Play of it on YouTube, but it never got released because Blizzard apparently shit themselves or something.
Well,
I don't know.
That's Blizzard,
No,
right?
what happened was that the quality of the game wasn't up to up to what they wanted, because
right.
Well, like
that's the official excuse. I know.
The official excuse is that, but what I'm saying is that I don't know if you knew this, but they actually hired a lot of the same people who worked on. Oh, I can't remember the game now.
The Zelda CDI games.
Yeah, Zelda CDI. Thank you. That's why they have similar style.
Right, but the Zelda CDI games are rubbish. We all know that. but the Warcraft adventure game actually looks pretty good. I've seen this Let's Play on YouTube. It doesn't look like the Zelda CDI games. It looks really awesome.
But this is Blizzard. But this is Blizzard's thing. They did it there. They did it with StarCraft Ghost. They did it with Project Titan.
Yeah,
they've done it over and over again. They have games that are far in development, almost ready to go, and then they say, nope, sorry, it's not what we want.
Just so you have some more trivia, the reason why the CDI versions look so bad is because in order to save money, because they had a completely terrible budget, they actually got the guys to move into America and do it super fast. And so they had 6 animators from some Eastern Bloc country who flew down and lived there for 6 weeks and did all the animation super fast and then left. And what you have with the Blizzard people is that they just outsourced the animation and brought them back in-house. Right. So that's why the quality is way different.
And that's the same thing that happened with Space Quest 1 VGA. That thing got outsourced to Korea, came back looking like a 1950s pin-up poster, some shit, and it was awful. Sorry, it was awful. we've had this discussion over the Space Quest community. Everyone, it's really since Scott Murphy came out and publicly denounced Space Quest 1 VGA, every fan is now going, yeah, I didn't like it either. I just didn't want anything.
I'm one of the few people who actually didn't mind the different style for the Space Quest 1 remake, but
I don't mind it either. I have to fully admit, I did not mind it either.
It's a long distance. Go on spacequest.net. Check out the message board forums. There are pros and cons. People talking about the Space Quest 1 VGA. Oh, yeah. It's a very intense discussion. Let's just put it that way.
I guess the thing for me with regard to the Sierra ones is that when the first Sierra adventure I ever played was Police Quest 1, but I was really really young and I didn't really get it. The first one I got was Space Quest 4. And so to me, the SCI games are kind of like when I think of Sierra Adventures, I don't think of the AGI games. Those were ones that I played after I played the SCI games.
Oh, okay. Really briefly, the problem with Space Quest 1 VGA is precisely that it's retro-ish, even in style. It's very 1950s retro-ish, and the Space Quest vibe, at least to me and to the two guys themselves, who famously tried to get stuff changed to Space Quest 1 VGA and were told to fuck off. The problem with the Space Quest 1 VGA is that it's not the futuristic. Space Quest is supposed to be futuristic and gritty and comic booky, and Space Quest 1 VGA was neither.
Yeah, so it didn't match the aesthetic.
Not to me, anyway. There are people who will take your side. I am not one of them. Anyway, games. I like the discussion we were having previously. Oh, sorry, Tomer. I think Tomer was trying to say something earlier. No, he's just pouring himself a glass. The discussion.
I was trying to say that this is literally the last drink of sake I have in this bottle, and it was brand new when we started. So
sorry,
I'm
man.
not trying to make of that. Yeah, it's like 750 milliliters of sake.
Does that mean it's time to wrap up the show?
Actually, we're just about at that time. We can go on for a couple more minutes, but I think we're going to wrap it up soon anyways.
At a risk of derailing the conversation because we were having so much fun, I can't handle it anymore. I just wanted to put in a couple examples of remakes versus spiritual successors. And one of the ideas that came to mind is, and this is probably going to be unfamiliar to pretty much all of you, is Arkham Ultra and Dark Legions, respectively.
No, haven't heard of that.
So Archon is A-R-C-H-O-N. Is that familiar to anyone here?
Archon.
I've heard of it.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I definitely haven't played it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut up now and send you to do some serious research. That's classic, if ever there was one.
Everyone's got homework.
All right, I'll check that out. But I like the discussion we were having by remaking a game in a different style. Can we actually name any examples of games that have done that? And Mask of Eternity does not count.
I can give one example. I suppose is. Do any of you remember One Must Fall
2097?
Yeah.
Yep. And
I can never
remember
get
the
that number
god-awful sequel.
So the sequel to that, which you just mentioned, is One Must Fall Battlegrounds, and that was actually sort of a completely different genre. It was 3D. It was still a fighting game in a sense, but it was 3D multiplayer. It was just something completely different from its sort of progenitor, and it sucked.
Yeah, it played more like a third-person shooter than a kind of the traditional fighting game.
Does
And
games like do? Oh, sorry, cut you off.
It didn't really control very well, at least from what I remember of playing the demo way back.
This kind of... Sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
That game is... I actually interviewed the author of One Must Fall Battlegrounds, who's actually the same guy who programmed the original 2097. And, yeah, I mean, that was sort of a sequel that tried to change things up, tried to go in a completely different direction, and ended up bombshelling really, really badly. That's just one example. I'm sure there's more. One
Kinda
that
like
comes
what-
to mind
Sorry.
is Star Control 3. That sucked.
Yeah, Star Control 3 sucked. What about? I guess this one doesn't really fit, but what about Descent and Free Space? Because
Oh, yeah, that fits.
What
But
if
how
I
does
did-
that's a
would-
perfect example.
Did
I
you
guess-
guys
I
play a
guess
game
so.
called Forsaken? That was kind of like a Descent a little
Oh, the
bit.
Descent. Yeah, that was definitely a Descent clone, and I
Yeah.
loved it because I wanted more Descent.
there you go.
But yeah,
I'm-
because Free Space is a totally different genre, in my opinion.
Well, Free Space is a space. And now I don't. Does Free Space take place in the same universe as Descent does, or
Supposedly.
okay?
They say it does. I mean, what does that mean? Descent didn't have a universe story.
You were saying,
If
Tomer?
anyone would know, it should be you, Joe.
Yeah,
mean,
it should be. I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I think Brian's kind of more of the Descent aficionado than I am. But yeah, I think I did read that. Yeah, they're meant to take place in the same universe, but it's not really like reflected very much, obviously, in the. In the
Yeah,
game.
plus, some releases were called Descent Free Space, others were called just Free
Free
Space.
Space.
So
And I think one was even called like Conflict Free Space or something.
Maybe
it's
they just-
kind of debatable if it even is meant to be part of the entire Descent franchise or not.
Because they had
Well,
a
the-
falling out, as I remember. If I remember from my when I did the history, the dudes had a falling out, and the guy that did Free Space went off and did Free Space, and the guy that didn't went off and did the next. Maybe it was Descent 3 or something like that.
So as you're talking about different genres from sequels, I mean, in the console world, I mean, a lot of 2D platformers went into 3D shooters.
Well, Duke Nukem,
Yeah.
Duke Nukem,
Oh
example.
yeah. Grand Theft Auto.
Fallout.
You know, a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
don't even know that Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 exist.
Yeah, the top down.
Metroid.
This is
Oh,
a really good example because I feel that Fallout 3 was actually it was sort of a remake, but I feel that it was actually very, very faithful to the spirit. It really got the core of Fallout right.
Oh no, it did. I think Fallout 3 is one of my all-time favorite games. Like not just my favorite Fallout game. It's one of my all-time favorite games. Period.
Is that a sequel or is that a remake?
No, it's definitely a sequel. It's set in the same continuity, just set after the first two games.
I would argue that it's more like a reboot than it is a sequel because there's no real continuity there.
No, there definitely is continuity. Like at one point in Fallout 3, you meet, I'm not sure if I remember his name, Harold the mutant that you met in Fallout 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's more of a reference than continuity right there. I mean,
I kind of feel like the Fallout games all take place and maybe they are, direct sequels to each other, but because they're all separated, they take place in different areas. I feel like they're not like Final Fantasy in that they're totally different, but they're all self-contained. Like they don't really. It's not that I did this in the first game and it affected this in the second game or the events of the first game.
Maybe it's more like an anthology thing.
Yeah.
There's no temporal kind of relationship between any of the games. I
Well,
mean,
actually,
they take place in different time periods. They're all separate, and they all sort of mesh together into the same universe, which is awesome.
I know for a fact, I haven't played it myself, but Fallout 2 is a direct continuation of the first game because in the second game you play a descendant of the
There's a
protagonist.
very loose relationship between Fallout 1 and 2, and essentially the character that you play in Fallout 1 is one of your very, very remote ancestors in Fallout 2.
But there is a direct story connection.
No, there is.
I'm just going to bring up two games. First one is Postal, which got an FPS sequel, which I actually quite enjoyed.
Oh,
Sorry?
Postal 2 got an expansion a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it did, which is weird because that's an old-ass game. But
The original devs got the rights back to their game, and instead of going to Postal 3 or making Postal 4, they decided to pretend that Postal 3 never happened, and let's just make another expansion for our old game, because that's right up Postal's style anyway.
Which is because the same thing happened to Postal that happened to Carmageddon, which was that someone got their hands on the license and did the Carmageddon TDR 2000, which apparently sucked phenomenal amounts of ass, and someone got a hold of the Postal license and did a third game that sucked a phenomenal amount of ass. The other one I was going to bring up is the beloved classic Flashback, and its absolutely garbage sequel, Fate to Black.
Yeah. And it had an absolutely garbage remake as well.
Not a good game. A lot of people disagree with me on that, but it was just not a good game.
Flashback or
Fate to Black? Flashback? Yeah.
Flashback.
Oh, Flashback was good. It was tough as tits, but it was good. Amayirot, did you say there was a remake of Flashback?
Flashback had a remake a couple of years ago, and it was crap. It was buggy. Really? It was uninspired. It had terrible voice acting, dialogue. You could play the original in it, but only in a tiny ass arcade machine screen.
Oh, that's crappy.
That's how much they cared.
Oh, come on! You could totally do a very, very nice 3D game out of Flashback, and still have it be faithful to the original. Because one thing I've always wondered about in 3D games is why can't the protagonist cling on to stuff? Why can't if you're trying to climb up a wall, you just stand there in front of the wall and jump up and down until you can sort of jump up to the next level? Why don't you just grab onto it and climb up?
Then you'd have to render hands.
Oh dear God! But didn't they do that with that game that I can't? Mirror's Edge.
Troels.
You're talking about first-person games, basically.
Yeah.
Can I use one word to answer that question? Maths. Come on, get into your algebra involved in that. You don't want to know.
Because I know of plenty third-person 3D games where you can cling onto ledges, like Tomb Raider, Uncharted, Mario.
The various Prince of Persias and
Batman.
But come on, a first-person game where you could climb up shit, that would totally work in my opinion. But apparently it's mathematically impossible.
You couldn't see your hands, but Thief, you could climb up ledges.
Did you guys ever play Brink? That game was pretty bad, but that was basically a parkour shooter game.
A parkour shooter game?
Look it up, Brink. They hyped it up, and it was really bad.
Never heard of it, but a parkour shooter game, that sounds fun.
It was Mirror's Edge, but with, like, Call of Duty.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So can we just agree that Fate to Black was not a good sequel?
I think we can agree on that.
I kind of liked it.
I couldn't get anywhere in it.
It wasn't very good, but I still kind of liked it.
It's like what I said about Broken Age. It's like I liked it. It was enjoyable. Do I want to play the second act? Well, yeah, because I played the first act. But do I really want to play it? No.
Oh, and then interestingly, Flashback was a spiritual successor to Another World, and then Flashback got a sequel. So I think it's fun when spiritual successors or spin-offs, I'd call them, start producing more sequels than the original material. Sorry,
and
Tom.
that's funny because
Mass Effect is one example.
Mm-hmm.
And Another World had a sequel as well, which had no involvement from the original creator, mind.
Oh, that's right, a console only.
Yeah,
well, that whole situation.
Alien.
Yeah, that whole situation I find interesting. That so what was the name of the guy?
Eric Chahi.
Yeah, so he talked to the guy that ended up making Flashback about Another World, and he was so impressed with Another World that he made Flashback.
Nice.
he was giving Eric Chahi advice. Oh, this is how you should do it, and this blah. And I'm a more experienced, seasoned game designer than you, and this and that. And then he ended up making basically a clone of the game.
Which it's kind of like Another World meets Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Flashback is, and I still think it's good. It's completely unfairly hard, but it's fun.
But that's how these guys. I mean, have you seen the you can basically beat Another World in 4 minutes if you're really good. Even less than that if you're really, really good.
Ouch. No, I haven't.
Yeah, go look up. There's a whole bunch of Another World speedruns on YouTube, and yeah, literally you can finish the game in 4 minutes.
So here
by doing everything.
Here's a funny anecdote. So Movie Games, right? The website that's basically IMDb for computer games.
And
when
sadly, Jim could not make it today. He was going to come, but he wasn't able to make it.
He was?
Yes.
I'm gonna berate him badly on Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, what I was getting at was back when I was like 16 or so, when I was a heavy contributor to Mavi Games, I wrote a really scathing review of Fate Black, and I still think it's not that great of a game. I mean, it's not as bad as I made it up to be back in the day, but still, it's not really that good.
It's
really
very
that good.
primitive.
So someone ended up emailing me the most heinous sort of hate mail that you can imagine.
Oh boy.
Because I wrote a bad review for Fate to Black.
Wow.
Make of it what you will.
Wow.
Wonderful. Well, I guess on that note, we're around our time here, and I know I have to get somewhere. So,
I still have one drink left. So Troels,
Building up here. Really
Wow.
building up here.
Drum roll.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking with all of you, but for everyone who is listening out there, please fuck Phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria, yes.
Cheers.
Wonderful.
Thanks for that.
I was
And
saving
with
that because Tomer wrote me in the private chat. He had one glass of sake left, so I had to make that one count.
We had to save it, so just Troels was holding himself back. He wasn't swearing, waiting for the one opportunity.
Just to make it very clear, this is a 750 milliliter bottle of sake that was brand new at the time we started this conversation. And I had just one drink every time Troels sweared, specifically when he said the F word.
Yeah, not even the S word. The S word didn't count this time.
The S word did not count, the F word did, and it's empty.
But I did notice you also drank when Amayirot swore.
I don't know if it shows up, but it says 40% somewhere there.
I can't
We
read
just got
Japanese.
Israel drunk.
Oh
This
Lord.
means I'm just basically really drunk now.
Awesome.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody. Tomer has to go to sleep now.
That's what you call passing out.
Yeah.
2 hours, man. Hey, I'm a father. I don't get to sleep.
There you go. Okay, so I guess that's it. So that was a great talk, everyone. I'm really happy with the way that turned
Thank you
out.
very much, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you for having us.
Can't wait for the next one.
absolutely.
Glad to
So
be here
then-
again.
Woohoo!
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Sorry for being a pain in the ass.
You
Not
were
at
awesome.
all,
You were
man.
in pain.
Oh,
Me too.
And I found that if those who are interested, I can't remember what Active War is actually on Good Old Games for $9. So
Thank you very much. I'll check that out.
Yeah, so please check that out. Hey, maybe I'll do it on the show.
$90. 90 like 90 bucks.
Yeah. No, 9, right?
9.
That makes
99999.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, before we get into another whole conversation, I'm going to stop the broadcast. Thanks, everyone, and
Goodbye.
we'll see you for another one of these in another little while. Bye-bye.